Okay, good evening and welcome and thank you for coming to our annual community budget workshop. This workshop is designed to provide the community with information about the city's budget, both operating and capital, serve as a forum for you to ask questions of city staff. We have all of our department directors here tonight to assist in responding to your questions. And the workshop is also intended to allow you to provide feedback into the budget development process as we work towards an adoption in June of 2025. We understand your time is valuable and we appreciate you being here and spending time with us in person, especially tonight. This workshop is also being recorded and will be posted online in the next few days so that those who weren't able to attend in person or watch on the live stream can watch it on Zoom later. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce our finance director. Sorry, Carla Carvalho de Graaf. I was trying to make sure that I didn't say the wrong Carla.
It's going to be tricky. So as City Manager Cunningham said, we want to welcome everyone to the 2025-2026 budget workshop. Community participation is a critical part of the budget process. And as Amy said, I'm the finance director for the City of Novato, and I'm also a fellow Novatoan. With me tonight is our department head team, including our newest member, our Assistant City Manager, Carla Hansen. And next to her, to my left, is City Clerk Laura McDowell. Next to me is City Manager Amy Cunningham. And then to my right, we have Interim Public Works Director Tim Burke, Community Development Director Claire Hartman. This is a mouthful. Parks and Recreation and Community Services Director, Katie Gauntlet, and of course, our Chief of Police, Jim Noggle. They are here to answer any questions about their areas within the budget. We will review revenue, our general fund forecasts, the budget development process, the operating budget as it stands for fiscal year 24-25, as we are currently in the budget assumption development phase of the operating budget. And of course, the departments are working on their budgets or have worked on their budgets, and we are in the review process. And then at that point, I'll turn it over to Tim Burke for the CIP draft budget, and then we move to questions and answers and next steps. So I wanted to start with an overview of revenue before we get into the nuts and bolts of the budget. The city's major revenue streams are property tax and sales tax. You may have seen this graphic previously as we've used it to show the comparison of the proportional share of property tax for the city of Novato to our fellow Novato agencies. Novato gets 7%, 7 cents of each dollar. And we're there on the slide in between other and the College of Marin. And there's simply nothing we can do to change that 7 cents. And the other agencies are like the Marin County Library, flood control, mosquito abatement, and there's a list of smaller agencies. This is the comparison of property tax to the other Marin County cities. Again, you see the 7%, Novato there, the little green house on the very far end. The reason that we are at the 7% and that can't be changed is that many years ago in the 70s, the property tax rate was reduced by 19%, and then Proposition 13 locked Novato into the 7% rate going forward. And then while property values increase, it's a slower growth area. It's just incremental increases. The other revenue stream I mentioned is sales tax. These are the rates that are effective April 1st, 2025. With the passage of Measure M in November, the city's sales tax rate will be 9.25%. And as you can see from the chart, several other cities in Sonoma and Marin County have been listed, and our sales tax rate is comparable to many of our neighbors. And there are 3 cities that have a rate set at 8.25%. This was reduced from the 4 cities as Mill Valley increased from 8.25% to 9.25%. And all the rates on this chart are effective April 1st. So the portion of the locally controlled sales tax that Novato has is 2%. We are showing this in two slices of this pie chart. What we were getting prior to Measure M, which is the 1.25%, the red slice of the pie, and then the Measure M slice is a 3/4 cent, and that's the gray slice of the pie. The state cap is 9.25. Sales tax can be higher than 9.25 for some special district taxes, and as you saw on the previous slide, a couple of neighboring cities have gone past the cap. But us taking up our space in that cap allows us to keep funding local to ensure that city services to the community come out of the suppressed state that they have been in, although we recognize it will take us a while to rebuild. To give you the financial picture, we have updated the general fund forecast, and basically the general fund is where our operating budget resides. We work with a consultant to do this and have had this forecast in place for the last 2 years. This slide reflects the forecast without Measure M. The way to view this slide is that the blue bars are revenue, the orange bars are expenditures, and the red line tracks the surplus or deficit. This slide shows the systemic deficit that Novato had before the passage of Measure M. And you can see that from 2025-26, fiscal year 25-26, through fiscal year 29-30, the deficit bounces around 3.4 million to 3.8 million. The deficit, again, not one time, it was ongoing, and even with cost containment, we would not have been able to fund all of the costs necessary to fund our operating budget. This is the forecast with Measure M. Fiscal year 24-25 is still forecasted to come in with a deficit, even though there are some Measure M monies that will come in the fourth quarter. And the chart that I showed previously showed Measure M. Before Measure M, all of the out years had a deficit. But now that we have Measure M, you can see starting in 25-26 that the forecast shows a surplus, but it doesn't show a surplus of 10 million, which is what Measure M will bring in. In 25-26, you see a surplus of 6.8 million, and that's because we have a systemic deficit. So we had to fill that hole with the sales tax revenue. And then there is a surplus to be put towards other expenditures or capital improvements. A couple of assumptions in this model. There are no personnel increases in the out years, no salary increases baked in. We're currently in labor negotiations. Revenue is forecasted at moderate growth, no more than 2 to 3% for taxes, and less than that for items like franchise fees. Other costs other than personnel do have inflation factors built into them, but they only make up about 30% of the costs in the budget. So the inflation factor could be anywhere from 0 to 4%, depending on the type of cost that it is. Maybe utilities are higher than another type of cost because we know that that's been going up at that rate, and it's based on actual data and budget forecasts for several years. This also does not account for capital needs. It is strictly the operating budget, and it doesn't account for any added resources. So at this point, the positions that we have currently are the positions that are in this forecast. This is another chart that just shows it in a slightly different way. For fiscal year 25-26, it is projected that we will receive 10.6 million for Measure M. Of the 10.6 million, 3.8 million will be used to offset the systemic deficit. That's the red part of the pie. And then the 6.8 million, or 64% of the pie chart, that's available for all of the other needs. So capital projects, pension trust, reserve replenishment, salaries, whatever resources are needed to fill strategic plan items and community needs. So slight pivot to talk about the budget development process. The budget should reflect the community's priorities. Opportunities for council to hear public comment are at the council meetings, but in particular, if you would like to comment on the budget as it is developed, there is a council study session on April 8th, the council budget workshop on May 13th, the budget hearing on June 10th, and then the budget is slated to be adopted June 24th. We have also issued a budget priorities survey. This is the web site that it is on, Open Novato. The survey deadline is March 31st. And we've actually done 2 community surveys. One was about this workshop and if people wanted it in person or to be virtual. And as Amy mentioned, it is being recorded so people can watch it at their leisure, and then we'll look to see if we've gone viral. If budgets go viral. So the budget priorities survey, the community outreach, these are all the places that we do outreach, news releases, Facebook. I saw it on Instagram, X, Nextdoor, Open Novato, Novato in the Know, and our city newsletter. So a lot of outreach, and we do have quite a few subscribers. And a preview of the community priorities survey results. The survey, again, doesn't close until March 31st. And it's a similar survey to what we've done in previous years so that we can see trends and have, baseline of questions. But right now, the top 3 items are coming in at public safety, streets and medians maintenance, and business retention and attraction. And just to mention, at mid-year, the council put $200,000 of Measure M funds towards street and median maintenance. And then finally, the budget should also support the strategic plan. This is a snapshot of the elements of the strategic plan and the goals of the strategic plan. While this strategic plan is coming to a close, since it's a 23 to 25 strategic plan, there are some goals that have not been completed yet, and we took into consideration in the budget process that as the departments developed their budgets, any of the items that haven't been completed in the strategic plan, as there's still work to do, and we would want to fund that to complete those items. Now I'm going to delve into the operating budget numbers a little bit deeper. But this is really for where we stand in 24-25 to give you an idea of where we are and what the expenses will be at, or likely more, with inflation and increases in some of the costs. So you can see that the adopted budget for fiscal year 24-25 initially had a $4.2 million deficit, and the amended budget has a deficit of $3.5 million. The amended budget is after mid-year. Actually, on Tuesday of this week, we brought a mid-year budget to council, and they amended the budget. It included additions to revenue and expenditures that needed to be included because they weren't on trend or something unexpected came up, but that actually resulted in a reduction of the deficit by about approximately $700,000. In addition, we needed to include the Measure M monies in the forecast, as Measure M is effective April 1st. The first payment will be received this fiscal year in June. So again, revenue, top 2 sources, property tax and sales tax. Just to note that these are the mid-year numbers, and the Measure M mid-year adjustment is included in the sales tax that was forecasted at $2.6 million. Those two revenue sources, 69% of the budget. And then going around the pie chart, you have other taxes, which are business license, transient occupancy taxes, charges for services, which is like our permit center, permit fees, park and rec programs, grants, fines, intergovernmental investments make up that other category. Transfers in and out. The city has many funds, not just the general fund, and sometimes other funds help fund operating expenses. And the prime example would be gas tax funds that offset some of the street maintenance, and that gets transferred into the general fund and is treated like a revenue. And we would expect that to continue into 25-26. This is the expense budget for the general fund budget at $59.88 million. Again, city services are provided through the people on staff. Our personnel costs make up the largest part of the budget at 62%. You see salary and benefits there, and then you go around the pie chart, professional services, which are things like janitorial services and consultants. There are a lot of things rolled up into that category. Operating expenses, supplies and materials, et cetera, utilities, other expenses. And then we do transfers out, and some significant transfers out are we budgeted revenue for Measure M coming in at $2.6 million, and then council approved replenishment of the reserves, both the self-insurance reserve and our emergency reserve or rainy day fund with that Measure M funding for this fiscal year. So this is a personnel 6-year history. And in September of 2020, council made the difficult decision to eliminate 17 positions. That reduced the FTE count by 8%. And of course, that was during the pandemic, and the financial world was upside down then for many of us, and certainly for the city. You can see that the FTE count was 208.5 at that time, and then went down to 188.5 in the next year. And we've kept the FTE count under 200 to cost contain. And during the last few fiscal years, have only added critical need FTEs so that the city could cost contain as much as possible. But that means that staff triaged a lot of areas, prioritizing the most important things, but not necessarily being able to get to everything. And then I know this chart is really small and it's been in most of our presentations, so I did a little call out box. This is the personnel 20 plus, because it said 20-year history, but it actually was like, oh yeah, it's 20 plus year history. And back in the early 2000s, our FTE count was 234. And now, again, we're currently at 198. So we have some key areas in this upcoming budget cycle for 25-26 that need to be addressed. And we are analyzing upgrades or additional FTE that need to be added, but are doing so very judiciously based on organizational assessments required as part of the strategic plan. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim so he can talk about the capital improvement program.
Thanks, Claire. I'm here tonight to present the capital improvement program proposed budget for 25-26. Go ahead, thanks. This year's budget will allocate funding not only to existing projects, but to new projects that are going to come about. The funding will be either fully funding projects or in some cases only partially funding projects, just to get the funding started, the design started, and facilities assessed. Identity and prioritizing projects are based on facility assessments, funding request or funding restrictions, general plan strategies, city council, public input, staff input, and finally, any kind of transition plans. Thanks. Our fiscal year 25-26 program objectives and goals include prudent fiscal responsibility and management of funds, initiating new projects where there's a significant impact and need, closing out all completed projects and reprogramming the remaining funds, minimizing the number of funding sources, and then also reconciling special revenue sources, for instance, development impact fees and gas tax. First, I'd like to take the opportunity to go over some of the accomplishments in the last year of capital improvement projects that have been completed. Grand Avenue Bridge construction was finally completed after 15 years since the project was created. Construction started in April of 2024, and the notice of completion is hopefully going to be approved on April 8th of this year. This project was able to secure grant funding in the amount of $4.3 million. The project included installing not only the bridge, but also 7 curb ramps, 4,000 square feet of sidewalk, things like that. Go ahead. Another project that was completed in 24 was the long Diablo corridor enhancements. This project installed 13 curb ramps, over 1,000 linear feet of bike lanes, and go ahead, go to the next one. The 2024 pavement resurfacing project was completed. We also have upcoming our 2025 resurfacing project that's just currently went out to bid. We've also have under construction the Hogue Playground upgrades and ADA improvements, the wood pole replacement program, which was awarded by City Council and should begin shortly. So some of our current projects still in design include the Novato Boulevard Improvements Project between Diablo Avenue and Grand Avenue. The project cost is estimated to be approximately $15 million, with a $12 million coming from Marin County Transportation Sales Tax Measure A. Also, PG&E is expected to begin work hopefully this May. This slide here shows the different funding sources for specific project categories. For streets and pathways, there's the Transit Authority of Marin Measure AA, gas tax, development impact fees, and then of course federal and state grants. Parks and Rec facilities include funding for Parks and Rec facilities include Quimby fees, county parks Measure A funds, development impact fees again, and also long-term maintenance. Municipal buildings typically are just included with or are funded strictly from general fund. This next slide shows an estimate of revenues over the next 5 years. our long-term maintenance revenues, gas tax, TAM Measure AA revenues, and the county county parks Measure A, and of course Measure M, which Carla's already gone over. Go ahead. Some grant funding that the city has received. Again, we've received over $10 million in TAM Major Streets program for Novato Boulevard widening. Potential funding that we hope to get from the Transit Authority include Sutro Avenue sidewalk gap closure and quick build improvements at various intersections. Right. Thanks. So this slide here is where we are proposing new funding for existing projects. I'm not going to go over every single project on here. I'll just highlight a few of them. The North Redwood Boulevard Corridor Study. This funding is to support the public outreach and conceptual planning process of the streetscape plan for the Redwood Boulevard between Diablo and Wood Hollow. The 2003 accessibility upgrades at San Marin and San Andreas. This is to upgrade the pedestrian facilities at the intersection of San Marin and San Andreas to meet accessibility standards. Finally, the improvements for Olive Avenue include adding westbound turn lanes on Olive Avenue to Redwood Boulevard, Class 2 bike facilities, new storm drain culvert. Go ahead and go to new projects. The following chart includes all the proposed new projects, which include the 2026 annual pavement rehab project, the City Hall workspace reconfiguration, annual traffic and striping marking project is an ongoing project that we have every year. The ERP financial system, which will be assess the business requirements for the existing financial system and determine if one is needed for a new replacement. The Hamilton Amphitheater project playground improvements seek to replace and improve existing playground and surfacing, and the surfacing to ensure ADA requirements. Hamilton Community Gym and modernization enhancements. This is under a joint use facility agreement with the Novato Unified School District. Any improvements in this at the gym would be a 50-50 split between the school district and the city. The Hill Community Room HVAC replacement. Margaret Todd Senior Center HVAC replacement. The Novato Police Department HVAC replacement. Miwok fencing improvements, phase 2. Margaret Todd Senior Center exterior siding replacement due to excessive dry rot. The Parks Master Plan, phase 2 priorities based on the Park Master Plan. PD water infiltration, so the police department facility that is, this is to repair the police department that is getting some water infiltration in their evidence and custodial offices. I think, the final two I had spoken about before, the safe routes to school projects, quick improvements at various intersections, and the Sutro sidewalk gap. I apologize. Going over this can be very tedious, but the following just shows the various capital improvement projects in the category of municipal buildings. The total there is approximately 1.7 million that would go toward those municipal facilities. The overall transportation, drainage, and undergrounding category for various CIP projects. These 10 plus projects total $6.4 million. And then finally, the Parks and Recreation Community Services projects. These 4 projects total up to $1 million in park enhancements. And I think I turn it back over to you, Carla.
Thank you. So our next steps are our public meetings. I just want to mention our Finance Advisory Commission meetings. They meet the first Thursday of each month at 8 a.m. They review that commission reviews all of the budget documents that come through to the City Council and gives us feedback on the budget process as we go through it. And it's an opportunity to make public comment at those meetings and see the process in action. And then, of course, the council meetings that I mentioned earlier, the study session, workshop, budget hearing, and then budget adoption.